And we're live. Good evening, my whiskey brothers and sisters, and welcome to Book 2, Episode 2 of the Alberta Scotch Society and Friends Whisky Book Club. As always, we're honored to have you, the viewer, and our panel with us tonight. You'll recognize a lot of faces, but there's a couple that you might not recognize so readily, and we welcome them with open arms tonight. So this is a good night as... Oh, hold on. Something just happened on my computer. Now I'm back. This is a good night. As we're continuing our Whisky Book Club journey, and I get to spend an evening with you most excellent people. Specifically tonight, we're reviewing chapters 4 to 6 of this book, Ralfy's book, Search for a Whiskybothy. For those new to us, I'll explain a bit of what we're about. First and foremost, we are lovers of whiskey and all things whiskey, which in this case revolves around reading and tasting. So that's number one. Number two, we're about camaraderie and what comes with sharing a dram, a book, and adventure together. So tonight's dram is this one right here. Get both of them up here for you. Oh, here, I'll get a close-up so you can see it too. Boom. Right there. So that's the dram. And this is Ralfy's 2014 Whisky of the Year, Benromach 10. And we will, afterwards, as in all previous weeks, continue the fun with our after dram immediately following on this channel. So without further ado, let's first welcome Sean and his first night with us. Can you just, there's Sean down there. Everyone see him? There he's good. And I'll start us off. And what I'm going to ask everyone to do is introduce yourselves and your other handles that you go by. So I'm Dolph. I'm the president of the Alberta Scotch Society and your mediator tonight, your host. And you can find me on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram at The Spirit of Edmonton and The Spirit of Yeg on Instagram. And that's me. And I'm going to go through this right now. And let's start with Sean, if we can. Here we go.
I'm Sean Kincaid. I don't use anything but that for any of my social media. Right now I'm up at work in a undisclosed location and sit in my little private cell.
Excellent. And Nicole, you're next.
Good evening, everyone. I am Black Cat Whiskey on Instagram, and I've been with the book club now for a little bit, so everyone's used to seeing my face.
Yes. And a good one it is. Here we go.
All right. Good evening. My name's Kent. I also go by Whiskey a.s.s, and I, like Nicole, have been here for a little while, and probably, hopefully I'm looking better tonight. Finally got my camera after ordering it March 30th. Just a little bit these days. And, well, I don't know what to say. We've got a good dram and hopefully a couple of good chapters ahead of us. So we'll see you soon.
Hi, guys. It's Yukon Dave coming to you from my basement again. You can get me at Yukon Dave _EDM.
Hey, Travis here, the Alberta rep / ambassador for Rare Drams Whiskies. And I also run the Drams for Fams Instagram account and the Drams for Fams charity whiskey tastings. And this is my second Spirit of Edmonton book club. Looking forward to learning more about Mr. Ralfy and hearing what other people think about Mr. Ralfy.
Perfect, guys. I'm going to put this on. Hopefully we see it. So I'll start with a quote from one of Ralfy's favorite things. So soft and complex emotions, which drift back and forth on waves of alcohol-inspired contemplation. The presence of original thoughts and deeper resonance is palpable. I drift on the amber air of contentment and appreciate the presence of a wonderful companion, silence. So my point is this by using this quote. Ralfy says that he does not have a family. He doesn't need company to be at ease. He likes silence. I contend that whiskey is his best friend and that he is most at ease with his passion, whiskey, alone or with friends. Do you think, my panel, anyone out here, that Ralfy would be just at ease with silence without alcohol? So we'll put that out there. What do we think? Who's up?
Well, I'll go first. I think he wouldn't be at ease with quiet with nothing to drink. And I think he writes all these passages after he's had a few.
That might be a very good comment. That might be.
Yeah.
I think Dave just summed it up.
I think
mean, for me, personal experience, I mean, I can sit at home, close my doors on my den, and sit in silence. But I mean, for me personally, the silence becomes deafening almost. So I always, put on music, or sometimes I have my kids upstairs laughing and giggling, and that always helps. But there is a time and a space for everything. So the silence, maybe he would, but like Dave said, I think that it'd probably get pretty loud, the silence, if he wasn't dipping his fingers in the whiskey.
Alrighty. And here we go. I'm going to go with another quote. And I put some quotes up here. And this is one of my favorite ones from him for the whole book. So, I suit myself, but not selfishly so. I consider others, but not excessively so. I reward myself, but not irresponsibly so. It is all about balance, the yin and the yang thing. So, what do we think about that? Any comments on that quote? Something you like, dislike, something you change? Throwing it out there.
I really like it. I hope that I kind of lead my life the same way. Like it just, yeah.
It was weird when I was reading it and came across that quote. I read it a couple times, and then you obviously picked it. It obviously stands out. It's one of the most memorable quotes so far. But yeah, like Dave said, you kind of want to live your life with that as a motto, I guess, even though it's a lengthy quote. But indulge but not overindulge, and then kick back and sit in the background when it's time to do that as well.
See, I think
leave yourself just everything in moderation, nothing in excess either way.
I think this ties in. I was going to comment on that last quote just about him being alone. I think Ralfy truly does enjoy his private time, as we all probably can in limited amounts. But I do think that in this book, you're seeing that Ralfy does enjoy company, but it has to be company that Ralfy enjoys. He enjoys being around certain kinds of people. I mean, there was something about the drunk at the Smitty's pub that he found that he appreciated.
Yeah.
And yeah, so he talks about him being like, you kind of get this image of him being a loner, but he does enjoy being around people. He enjoys being around his club, which I know we're going to talk about later. And I think this quote kind of it's just sort of what it is. It's that balance of like, he likes his alone time, but he also does enjoy being with other people if they're his kind of people.
Alrighty. And talking about being alone or not alone and friends, let's say hi to the people who's dropped in already. We got Daniel Whiskey Whistle. We got Nick who's come up already. We've got SMWS Canada. Woo!
Nice.
McNally and Red Deer and Nicholas right here at home. So hello to all of you tonight. Thanks for joining us. And I like what Nicholas has to say. I agree with him. Nothing wrong with a little bit of excess. And I don't know. I think he relies on it. I think he loves it. And I do think it's his best friend. I do. I think he could live without it, but I think he likes it more, a life where he has his friend with him instead of without. So do I think he could survive without the drink? Yes. Do I think he would be as at home on the cushions on the ground in front of the fire without it? Maybe not. So we'll just leave it at that. Oh, hello, Zara. How's Zara doing? And so,
hey, Zara.
Oh, sorry. Did I cut someone off?
No, sorry. I was just saying hi to Zara.
Good stuff. I got a few questions about tastings and friendship. So let's stay on this friendship thing for a second. And Ralfy brings this up a couple times. So Ralfy says he likes positive people. It's never time wasted. Oh, I'll even put that up here for you so you guys can see that at the same time. There we go. It's never time wasted when in the presence of positive people. They add light in our day and affirm our humanity. I really like that quote as well.
Yeah.
And I'm asking anyone on the panel, anyone out knows someone like this that they'd like to give a shout out to tonight? Someone that just makes your life better just by being around. And I'm going to start by saying my wife. Shout out to my lovely wife, and you'll see her shadow in the background. So
Now you make the rest of us look bad now.
no, I got started off. I started off, and my wife says hi in the background as well. So there she is.
But I think when you look at that quote, it's never time wasted in the presence of positive people. And I'm going to say that every time I do this, the panel, I find you guys all positive, and it's fun to come back.
Yeah. Thanks, Dave.
That's just as good, buddy, as the wife comment. That was fantastic. Anyone want to beat that?
Get in early before all the good ones are taken.
Yeah. Yeah. I got to say, I have a lot of great friends. And, well, Dave, what did you think of one of them tonight as you were dropped over his house?
Oh, we had a great time.
Yeah. That was Jason Mack. He was on with us after the drama a few weeks back.
I met him.
Yeah. Jason and me are relatively new / old friends because he lived out of the country for a long time, and we met each other, once or twice over 4 or 5 years, and now he's back in Canada, and we're getting a lot closer. But everybody else here has become decently close friends, as we meet up weekly and just chat about a mutual thing that we all respect and enjoy.
Being whiskey or something else.
Well, there's many things we all enjoy. I'm just leave that open-ended.
Good.
I gotta, because we're in a whiskey kind of forum, I think two people that we all know / knew, but someone who's just tuned in tonight. I think if you've ever ran into Kelly with SMWS at an event, you will agree that Kelly brightens up your day. She's always smiling. She's always in a good mood. And I will throw kudos to her, and maybe someone that I think probably embodied this 100% was Jay Wheelock. We all obviously would agree with that. But Jay, when I read this sentence, I immediately thought of Jay, and just that smile, that warmth every single time you're around him. So
I'm just finishing my comment. Kelly and Jay for sure. And I love Kelly. She was my mule for one of my very first tastings. She was so nice to me to get in the Hague Club for me. I was doing Cameron Bridge tasting. She was able to bring that back, and she barely knew me. I think I talked to her 2 times at Kegging Court. What a wonderful human being she is. And Jay, like you said, bright up a room. Anytime you saw him at a whiskey tasting, people went to his booth before anyone else. Well, I did. I loved it.
He walked into the room and immediately had a crowd around him.
Yeah. And number 2, still on the same vein as what we were talking about before. Ralfy seems pretty impressed with Juliet, so someone that he met in their Scotch club. So he's pretty impressed with her and her awareness of all things malty, which he says, and Bob Banford's ability to articulate the subtle notes of smell and taste, which I thought was neat because Ralphie's all about that and be able to pick up those notes.
I immediately thought of Nicole when I read that.
I'm really impressed with someone's knowledge at a tasting. So they just saw them, they knew them or didn't know them, but really impressed with someone like that.
Was that a question, or is there a question in there?
Do you know anyone, or do you remember a time when you did see someone like this that you were really impressed with at a tasting?
Yeah, just make Nicole large screen there, Dolph.
Good.
Does beer
So
count?
we're going to say Nicole is the one.
Nothing like being on the spot.
Okay, sorry, Nicole. We're back. I agree. Nicole is one of those people, and I share my coffee pods with her on occasion. She shares her chocolate with me. I know Davin DeCalgemo doesn't like us trying chocolate at the same time, but I think it's fantastic when we're drinking.
Chocolate is chocolate.
Yeah.
He's not listening.
There's never a wrong spot for chocolate.
Good.
Have you guys ever been to Patrick Van Zwijndem tasting with Van Zwijndem Distilleries?
Yes. all the time at Keg and Cork. You're always there. You're right.
Patrick Van Zwydam is just incredible to listen to. And I'll put Don Livermore, who you guys had on one of your book clubs, right up there in terms of whiskey nerd knowledge, where you go in thinking you know something about whiskey, and then they start talking, and it's like it just blows your roof off what you thought you knew. Those two guys came to mind when you sent those questions out, Dolph. Van Zwydam just is like he doesn't even have to try. Like he just talks, and it's like, and he's worried that it's too high level, and we're just all like mouth agape, just listening. And Don Livermore is almost the exact same in a little bit of a different way, because Van Zwydam's more of a distiller. Don is more of a blender, but both of those guys come to mind as just that knowledge base.
I've got a second.
Oh, go ahead.
I've got a second what Travis said about Dr. Don. You know what? Not enjoying chemistry in school, listening to Dr. Don talk, I'm like, okay, this is actually interesting. This is fascinating. And the knowledge, like you said, you listen to him and you just sit there and you're like, wow. There's no other way to describe it but wow. I know, too, with everything right now, anytime I see him live, I try and make an effort to go listen to him just for the geek factor. Because it's always something that intrigues me.
Perfect.
One I have that's more local is Graham Usher. I've been, privileged enough to go attend a couple tastings, private ones with the Heathens, but he always shows up. At the beginning, he kind of just hangs out in the background, but then every single bottle that comes out of a sock or a brown bag, he's got input on, and like he's one of those people you can just sit there and listen to talk about whiskey, and time goes by and you don't even notice.
Just don't pronounce distilleries improperly around him.
Definitely not.
He will let you have it.
He does that in tastings. It doesn't matter where you are, right?
I was like co-hosting a tasting and named the distillery, and he just ripped into me, and I said, "You gotta laugh." I mean, it's like a lot of these distilleries. It is hard to kind of remember how they're all pronounced, but he will let you know, and it's hilarious. I love it.
Well, I think Graham's a storyteller more than a taster and the background. He is a storyteller and seems to have a story for everything, which is fantastic, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think also Graham likes to sit in the background and let other people present, which is why he usually has Dave Gordon up there instead, right? There's another person that's very knowledgeable. Talk over, but Dave Gordon, I like how he approaches things. He'll give you a lot of geeky information, and it doesn't sound geeky at all. It sounds like he's just telling you a story. And I kind of like the two of them when they pair up, and a little promo.
From their new store.
New store coming open. If you checked out my Instagram, some today's pictures of it. It's looking great.
On 149th Street and 149th
and 118th. Yeah.
Were you there this week?
I was there today.
Oh, okay. I haven't been there for a week, so.
Yeah. No, Graham was giving me a hard time about not being there for a week, so I dropped in. Walked around, took a couple of pictures, went to his house, and turned in my keys. So that's the end of my late night snooping at the store.
I'm going to go back to Dr. Don for a second because he was on last night. Anyone else here catch Dr. Don? There's two of them on Instagram, and the questions came. It seemed right out of Davin's book, Canadian Whiskey, and I got a shout out at one point, and I want to play this for you because he did this. So I'm going to play it on my iPad. Hopefully you see it.
This one was going to take a little bit, I think. And somebody should be Google or whatever. I'm looking for a value. The legal plus or minus tolerance on bottling for the strength of whiskey. So when we put whiskey in a bottle, we have a plus or minus. What is that plus or minus? Did you look at one?
Yep.
Very, very small.
Yeah. What is the legal limit for the plus or minus tolerance on bottling? Not 0.0, not 1.5, no. Not 0.2, no, it changed.
Oh.
I think I'm going to go. I'm really pumped. Still haven't got it yet. Not 4%. Oh, shit. 0.3, YEG. The spirit of YEG got 0.3%. You're absolutely correct.
Yeah.
Oh, wait for it.
That's what I had.
I didn't want to show you this, but this part.
Yeah, I actually did that. Right there. 0.03. Good job.
Wait for it.
Good job. Spirit of YATG. Nice job. I think that's Dolph. I think Dolph is Spirit of YAG, I believe. Good guy.
Wait.
And you better be
Wait.
quick. Dolph really went, yes, it is Dolph. He's a good guy. If you follow Dolph tomorrow night, I think Dolph, you do a live book reading at 7 Mountain Time. He's in Alberta. They do a great job. They've been on their podcast. I'll recommend it to anyone who's into reading literature and whiskey. All right.
Isn't that nice?
Nice.
That's awesome.
Hey,
And I tried to tape it somehow, and my wife got mad at me trying to do stuff. So she just said, "Give me the iPad for God's sake." So went out to the TV and just recorded it. So you had the iPad version tonight, and there's a little part after that. What made me mad on this show, and Laura told me to suck it up, called me a baby several times. I got like 5 answers that night before other people, and he calls out their names. And it's all because of our last book club. Most of the questions came from there, except for his knowledge of compounds, which I couldn't get because I had no idea. So that was fun. And he did the call out tonight. Hopefully we got a couple people with that call out. We'll see. But back to Ralfy. And let's go back to Ralfy when he has 500 bottles. You remember that part?
Yep.
And he talks about his 500 bottles, and I'm assuming he's got way more now, but he separated them then when he has 500 bottles, as I do, by region. And I know, and I'm sure Ralfy did as well, that there's many variations by region, but I still keep mine in region just so I can keep it just separated in my mind where something is. I want to know, does anyone else out there separate their collection in a different way? Let's go for that. Okay. Dave, I'll throw you up, bud.
all right. So I don't have quite 500. I've got 35 sitting over here, and they're just kind of mishmashed all over the place. I've got the Canadian stuff together. I've got some Scotch together, and then I got a whole bunch of my own. So they're sitting all over the room. So it's kind of like the rest of my life. It's all over the place.
And Travis, right as you're drinking. Sorry, bud.
Oh no, my son snuck downstairs past his mother and wanted to have a talk. So sorry about that.
Family first.
Yeah, I know. The current way I got them divided is I have a different row because my cabinet's pretty deep. So I have a row of single grains or grain whiskeys. I have peated whiskeys. I have just a Springbank row because that's my favorite distillery.
Yeah.
I have a sherry cask row. I have a bourbon cask row. I have a sherry bourbon cask row. And then I go into
Bourbon finished in port.
Canadian whiskeys, world whiskeys, bourbons, and ryes. That is
Perfect.
how
And
got
if
mine.
I asked you for something, you'd be able to find it on that shelf, I'm pretty sure, right?
Oh yeah, well as long as it's not buried too deep. It's not the best cabinet for accessibility. It's just more for kind of, it looks very nice, but it's tough when you need something at the back. You kind of got to shift a whole row over, get to the back, and then shift it back. There's a lot to it. It's like a Jenga puzzle sometimes, but
I was like that before I did it this way, but it forces you to know what you have. But sometimes you forget completely what you have because it's been in the back for so long.
totally. And I love how sometimes, I mean, I'm in a mood for a certain whiskey usually. So this I find lets me know, like if I'm in the mood for something peated, I got my peated row. It just gives me a little bit more, I guess, options in terms of what I'm in the mood for.
Yeah, excellent. And Sean, we're going to go to you. Your hand was up, buddy.
Yeah, I started off by separating them by region and country. So it sort of stayed like that. But I mean, I have so much Carnmore and Rare Drams. They get their own shelf now. And my two brewers is growing as well. So they've taken over half the Canadian shelf as well. Just kind of had to suck up a little bit being the first time on here.
Your checks in the mail, Sean.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And
they're numbered.
Nicole, we're going to you.
I'm in the midst of a reorg. I had some shelves that were starting to sag, so all my whiskey's on the floor, and I'm trying to decide how I want to put it back because I've bought a whole bunch of new cabinets that are closer to the floor. And it's actually hard. Before it was all by region, and I would have to do what Travis would, that digging through to find something that I was looking for specifically. Now I'm not sure which way I'm going to go, so it's a bit of an adventure, and I'm looking forward to it.
And you have offered to help other people with theirs as well. I think you offered to help Nick here, which I put on beside you. Did you not?
Dan, I offered to come in and help Dan organize his with a spreadsheet because there's that geekiness of me that wants to look at it alphabetical and then sort it. And I never heard back from Dan, but the offer's still there, Whiskey Throttle.
Whiskey Throttle's up there somewhere, but he's got a lot of bottles. He puts me to shame.
All of
Kent,
us became. Yeah.
Kent, you're up, bud.
I just
refer to it behind you. Just point to the areas.
Here, we can even go for a closer look.
There you go.
And as you can see, there are tags on them right now, because that is my wife, but they are all sorted by region. And we're actually going to permanently label once we decide this is what we really want to do. Because I really, 1 month ago, I came in and noticed that one shelf was sitting on the bottles on the shelf below, which was sitting on the bottles of the shelf below. So they were all, they were trying to find the floor. So they've been restructured and built with a heavy duty. While we were jumping on these, they didn't budge. I think they'll be okay.
Well, you fixed it, and it looks good, and I like the blue light behind it as well, I got to say.
Thanks.
It is nice. And we've got a couple other comments. Nick said this, open in one area, closed in another. I don't know if that works for Nick, because I think he's got as many as me open, which is about 70. So you'd have 70 stacked in like a spot, and then the hundreds in the other spot. I don't know if Nick's right. I think he's kind of lying a bit.
I have more open than I do closed.
He just got his cabinet, and we saw it. He put some stuff on was it? It wasn't YouTube. Sorry, Facebook. And it looked really good. And I was considering buying his old cabinet, but I didn't have a spot for it here. And I just spent so much money at Wine and Beyond a couple weeks ago. Although it's all sitting on the ground now, there's a place for them at one point when I shoo them in here. And Nicholas, I need to ask what this is. If you can type that in, or if someone else can answer me. But I do have a guzzler cabinet. So does that just mean an open cabinet? Anyone know?
That's an upstairs liquor cabinet that's close to when you're drinking.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Within arm reach, right?
Within arm reach. So you guys are just a fountain of knowledge. It's fantastic. All right.
Ralfy would not approve of a guzzler cabinet.
No.
He didn't like overconsumption. He was all about less consumption, moderation, not guzzling.
Yeah, I agree.
Not here,
that was just me bringing it back to the book.
Yeah.
And it's perfect, and I need you for that because we get a little bit off sometimes. But all right, so back to the book. And this is, I gotta say, I love Ralfy. I've enjoyed watching him for a long time. I really enjoy the book. This is a part I didn't like, and I don't know if I misread it, possibly. So someone can tell me this. So what's your read on the section where he's talking to the model pourer for Ardbeg? Do you remember this? He's at the whiskey festival for the first time.
Yeah.
So he wasn't too impressed with this lady, but personally, I think she was just trying to be nice to him and not fake or flirty because she was influenced by his flattery, like I thought. So, and on the side of the book, when I read a book, I always have to write stuff on the side because otherwise I start reading and 10 pages later, I don't know what I've read. So by me writing on the side, I start remembering things. And I look back at my comment and it was, I don't think you read this situation right. And I was talking to my wife who's reading this book at the same time as me. And I don't think we've ever read a book at the same time, but I think this is the one. And she says, what? So you think you're Leonardo DiCaprio? How about you guys? What did you think about that section? Am I reading it wrong? Or because people are allowed to be faulty or to read it faulty? So what do you think?
But I think he kind of eyed up the situation and said, okay, well, they've hired a young girl to pour, like she's not going to know a lot. And just the way one of the other models was standing with her arms crossed. That kind of put him off. And he wanted something more than just the regular thing that they pour without even thinking about. And he threw out that comment and she got all giggly, and man, he got down to the bottom shelf there real quick and got some really good stuff. So I think he just worked the situation.
For him and Juliet, apparently.
Yeah. Well, like everywhere you go, you kind of eye up what's going on, and then you work your plan.
So the first time I saw you with two brewers, I was flirting with you like you wouldn't believe, buddy.
Yeah. I was looking past you to some other people. Some young lady.
Most of you have poured at these events before, right? I mean, most of us here have, I think.
Yeah.
It is not easy to develop quick those sort of bonds and really like to have that. It is really hard. Like Edmonton Whiskey Festival is probably the worst one in terms of like you have a lineup of people and you're trying to have a quick little conversation, but it's really hard because you got people that are just standing there waiting for their dram.
Yeah.
So I mean, and it didn't sound like it was too busy at this Whisky Live, so maybe that was part of it. But I would say that he probably just read it wrong, and I think she was probably just doing what she was doing, and it wasn't that bad.
Well, she seemed really stiff. She wouldn't pour the drink until she got that ticket out of his hand. And right away, somebody comes up to me and they said, "Yeah, I'd like to get a drink." I start pouring.
Yeah.
I don't take the ticket first. I mean, I think that just feels real cheesy when no, I'm not going to do anything until you pay up. Yeah. And
so Dave's defending Ralfy. You read this part really intently because like every word within that section.
I read it a couple of times because I had to go back and look at it and said, that's kind of a comment on our industry as a whole. You go to the beer shows, hate to bring up beer in this, but they'll hire the good-looking girls to pour, and then you ask them a question, and they just, "Do you want some beer or not?" Like, keep moving. And I think that does a disservice to the company that's trying to represent their product.
Yeah,
if that's the best representation you have for your product, that doesn't really say a lot.
I've been to a couple whiskey tastings, or like festivals, where clearly the people that are pouring have no association with the product at all, and it shows immediately. And usually, if I'm interested in what they're pouring, I want to be able to talk, even if it's for 10 seconds, and get a quick little back and forth. And then, a lot of times you'll go back to that same booth, whether they pour again or not, but just to have more conversation. And these hired guns, they're there for one thing, and it's to bring people to the booth and get them away as quick as possible. That's how I feel. So I think maybe that's what Ralfy was seeing in this. And then maybe I read it wrong, but I thought it was that Juliet wasn't able to get the underneath the table dram, and Ralfy went back and flirted with her to get it. And that's where the quote where he said that he won and they lost was that he was able to get that under the table drink for Juliet.
But there, here you go again, is that person pouring, that lady pouring, she had no interest in what was going on other than filling that time. And I just found that to be just terrible. That's the way that lady got treated.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to speak up because it actually pissed me off. We're team here. I read it again, and I'm like, he treated Juliet so differently from that other woman. He separated them as humans. So Juliet got his attention. He made no effort to connect with this person. And that's part of the challenge sometimes at these festivals, is you have to make some effort to connect with that person who's pouring, because that will give you their 5-15 seconds. If you don't, you're not going to get anything. That's a given. Or you're going to get whatever bottle is there. But he treated that woman so differently and walked away and didn't think anything of it. That pissed me off.
Well, okay. So there's no way I would throw out a comment like that to anybody that was pouring. I would take what they poured and I would move on. I I thought it was pretty ballsy for him to start flirting with her to get something out of her. Like that part I didn't like, but I also didn't like the way the company represented their product with like people that really don't know anything about it. And if you read probably a couple pages before that, he looked around the room and what was that? You guys do it. I'm going to look this up because now you got me all fired up here.
Well, I'll do that.
But you know what? There's that point. They hire people. Sean said it. They hire these guns. They hire the people, and this is a big problem in the industry. They hire people that don't necessarily know anything about the product. They're there to pour, and they're there to engage with people. That's the only reason. Get the masses so these people go to the stores to buy their booze.
I do agree with Nick down below, though. If you look at his, perhaps Ardbeg misunderstood, and I'm just going to say college kids sent models. If you want the serious people, you send people that know the product. And I think for the most part, if we go back to the Edmonton MS Whiskey Festival and the Banff Whiskey Experience, I don't know about the Victoria one, but the people I talk to know what they're talking about, and I enjoy that. And don't get me wrong, if they're very pretty, just like Dave here, I enjoy both parts of it. I'll talk to the pretty Dave and I'll get the information all at the same time. But we have all seen this.
Yeah.
And you go to Ardbeg Day. What happens at Ardbeg Day? Sometimes I've had some very, very, very beautiful people talking to me, men and women. And I've had some very, very knowledgeable people who might have already been pretty as well. So I think we get it all.
So if you guys
put one thing up for Kelly, I like that. Make everyone feel special. 15 seconds, 30 seconds, a minute. Try to make them feel special as you talk to them. I think that's important. And I'll open it up. Anything else I said?
All right. Back on page 59.
Okay. Here, I'll put you on big.
Yeah, Ralfy says, surely this sort of event should be a showcase, a positive ambassador, an opportunity to taste and try before you buy. And then he says, oh, somewhere out there in the industry never got the memo.
Yeah. Or read it and didn't care. Yeah.
But I mean, look at the flip side on this thing. We as pourers, when we're pouring our product, we want to represent our product and explain what we're doing in that. Then you get the guys that come by and you just stick the hand out, you put something in there and he's gone. We get that all the time. So the drive-by guys, they're just there to liquor up.
You guys know this. I mean, a couple of we at Rare Drams, when we can't make an event like me or Bearded Dave, we just end up not doing it because Bob is very particular about who represents his company and his whiskeys, and he doesn't want someone there that doesn't have the same passion for Rare Drams that Bearded Dave or myself or Kenny in Calgary would, or Stacy in BC. He wants someone there that can speak with pride and knowledge about that brand, and that every single person we talk to gets a bit of that. And if we just had a hired gun there, they don't get that. And you're not building your brand that way. You're just pouring whiskey for people. And when there's 50, 60 whiskeys in an event, or however many whiskeys, you're going to remember those moments, like Kelly said, where you made eye contact and they taught you something, or they gave you a little piece of knowledge, or just like were kind to you. You will remember those more than the other 50 booths, right?
So yeah.
Alrighty.
Okay, I want to speak to that one.
Dave is passionate about this. Let's hear it, buddy. Keep going.
We have at Yukon Brewing, we have the same thing that we're not going to turn that over. We're not going to hire a taster to do it unless we trust the taster, and that's why Dolph's done some tastings for me.
Totally.
Like if I can't do it, and I can't get somebody that I would trust 100%, we're not doing it. So
I'm not the pretty face you throw out?
Yeah. But I also think this comes down to, if you're selling 10 million cases of some mass-produced product, I don't think you really need to have a guy there that knows everything and is really engaging in that kind of stuff, because they've got so much business now that it's not that important to them if they miss one guy. For Travis and I think it is important if we miss one guy.
That's true.
See,
You know?
I see it at our festival place culture arts event. We get one company, and I'm not going to name them, but they are a big national brand. They literally send us 3 to 5 bottles. We have to hire our own person to pour it. That person knows nothing about the whiskey. And we get some cute little girl there to pour, and she's always popular because she's cute. But she's
Or cute boy. We're not
well,
sexist.
no, actually, because I haven't
not
been
judging the girl.
hiring, it's always been a cute girl.
Okay.
So, but yeah, and going back to the other thing, like with the Ardbeg days, Cheryl and me have had a few conversations about this where we're going around the MS Whiskey Fest a few years back. She could hardly get a dram. I damn near had to get it for her, which is kind of weird because I always thought guys would automatically pour the women first. Nicole has also tuned me in on that in other situations. As she's shaking her head viciously, no.
Nicole, do you want to talk to it, or I go on to the next one? I'm
Oh,
going to give
let's
you
keep
the last
with the
word.
book. Let's not go off topic here.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can rant.
Don't get me
Well, I'm
started.
going to go back to Ralfy then. So, yeah, just bringing it back home. He seems to be really happy, really, really happy with his Glasgow Whisky Club. Why do you think he liked his time with them so much?
Well, I'll speak to it first. As somebody who probably doesn't have nearly as much time in the whiskey community as everybody else, the clubs, and not even the clubs, just the camaraderie and the brotherhood. Certain people took me under their wing when I was just starting out, and whether it was pointing me in the direction of certain distilleries or certain types of whiskey or whatever. The biggest part for me is when you're around like-minded people, and I think that's what Ralfy found with the Whisky Club. Is he, up to that point in the book, it doesn't really seem like he had talked to or met anybody that could really sit at the same table with him in terms of knowledge. Then he found this club, and it's everybody that thinks and drinks just like him. Mm-hmm. So for me, that's how I kind of connected to how he felt about his club.
All right.
I think a lot of the people in the club were there and they shared knowledge, and that's what Ralphie's looking for. Is he's looking for information, he's looking for knowledge, and these people were just so easy to be around. And he just, yeah.
Have you guys, I mean, you all have, you've had drams with people that aren't as big of whiskey nerds as we are. Mm-hmm. And you've had a whiskey with them, and you start to try and talk about it, and you just immediately know that it's a bad idea. You're like, this isn't good. There's no point. And you're just like, yeah, it's good whiskey. And then we can get into a group of these people like us, and we can nerd out as much as we want and know we're not going to be, teased for it or anything. That I think is exactly what Ralfy was getting there. And for him, he's mostly a solo guy, and he actually got to hang out with some people that he respected for their knowledge. Like you said, Dave, I think we can all appreciate that as people who have tried to share drams with people that might not understand our nerdiness.
But I think one of the things, you go to a club and people welcome you in, and they don't look at you, well, this guy's a new guy, he doesn't know anything. You don't get treated like that. You feel like, hey, we're all kind of we're all equal, and we're getting along, and I'm learning from these guys. And yeah, it's like, I've heard of certain whiskey clubs that they're all really stuffy and just a pain to be at. And then I go to Travis's first meeting I've ever been to is with Travis, and I think, oh my God, the guys have got jackets on, like jackets. And the first, Travis, we're going to have a talk by I forget what the guy was, his title. I thought, oh, geez, here we go. The guy stands up and says, yeah, my dog is having trouble with Spanish, but the cat's doing very well with Spanish. And everybody clapped, and he sat down. I thought, what the hell is this? And that was one of the best things I'd ever seen.
Yeah.
So stuffy.
It's so stuffy.
Speaking of whiskey clubs, Dolph, one of the newest members of the Alberta Scotch Society, I should say, thank you for welcoming me in.
You are most welcome, kind sir. You came in 2 days ago. Yesterday we got Lee Townsend. Today we have Nicholas is in it, and there's a brand new member that I saw come in just today. So we're going like someone every day. It's fantastic, and let's just say it's all because of you.
There's a growing community of people in Edmonton that want to get nerdy like this about whiskey. And I think we are definitely seeing that. And you see it on the Facebook group there. And again, I think it goes back to what Ralfy was talking about with his Glasgow club. There's more and more people that just want to do this, talk about whiskey in a nerdy way without being judged.
Yeah, I think all our smaller clubs are starting to amalgamate together. Finally,
A little bit.
We're all mixing, and the lines are definitely starting to blur, which is a good thing, right?
Well, COVID kind of did that. We forced us all online, and we're all sharing with each other online, and it's good. And yeah,
in some ways, I wish COVID would never end.
Our tastings are every 2 weeks now. So we're doing an online tasting next week, and we're doing it with rare drams. So the intermingling with everybody, I think it's fantastic. And I wouldn't have it any other way, I don't think, right now. I'm really, really happy for it. So you get to reach people further and further away. We've got people in Red Deer. We've got people in Fort Mac that we send stuff to that we can see online. And you don't have to Uber home. I think it's a fantastic idea. One for everybody. But what I think it's time to do right now, talking about tastings, is talk about what we have in our hands right now. So before we go and I find out what everyone wants to do or everyone wants to think or tell me about it, I'm going to show you the bottle. I'm going to read a couple things off of the bottle. And again, this is the 2014 Ralfy Whisky of the Year, Benromach 10. And I'll just read a part of the back of the bottle and the can. So for me, and this is probably one of the reasons I think Ralfy liked it, is every cask is hand-filled, hand-weighed, hand-stamped before maturing for many years in our traditional dunnage warehouse. Why do we make it this way? Because it creates a gorgeous classic 1960s Speyside character, beautifully balanced with a light touch of peat. And on the bottle, the only tasting notes we have on the bottle is pretty simple. It says delicious forest fruits and creamy malt, a wisp of smoke and lingering luscious sherry notes. That's all we have for the tasting notes on here. But I would like to ask you all, and get out your little 2-ounce samples that we sent you. And I should have asked if you opened them up before, but I'm sure everyone else has had them open up for a while. And who wants to talk about it first? What do we taste? Actually, I'm going to put it on everybody. I'm not going to focus in on you to put you on the spot. Just throw things up. What you think?
On the nose, Welch's white grape juice.
Oh, wow.
What's white? Okay. That brings me back to childhood.
Yeah.
Oh, completely.
Mine's empty already.
Yeah.
If you give me more.
Yeah. Dolph, this has a hole in it.
That's my fault. I'm sorry. I gave you a defective sample bottle. That's all me.
Well, I never read the bottle. And I picked up right away. I picked up a little bit of smoke, and I got a little salty almost out of it.
A little brine.
Yeah, and I picked up that sweetness, and I thought, is there sherry in there? And of course, the bottle says sherry. So if I would have read ahead, I would have known what I was doing. But I'm really enjoying the glass now that it's empty. I get kind of a well, I've got another one that's got something else in it. So
Oh, good.
but I get
Mine
really nice
tastes like
burn.
water.
I get a real nice
Yeah,
burn.
water.
Water. Wow. That's
You got too much.
I mean, it's
going down
really
the-
pouring
full.
in it.
There's a lot in it, but no, I can't drink up
Doesn't
here.
look like the other.
Oh, we're looking at the color.
Yeah.
It looks like we all have different colors, but it's our backgrounds.
Yeah,
Based
I
on
have a
lighting.
darker background, so it's going to look darker.
my gray hair throws it off.
I haven't had a ton of Benromach, to be 100% honest, and I see the bottles, and obviously Ralfy picked it for a reason, and just
Yeah.
for a 10-year-old whiskey, I find there's a lot going on,
Yeah.
and
I agree.
I'm terrible at tasting notes, to be honest, but I just know that I've been nosing this whole first 50 minutes of this YouTube thing, and I'm loving it. It's very nice, and that little bit of smoke is nice. It's not overbearing. It's just very subtle.
I would almost.
I'm not getting the smoke. That was my question for you guys. I can't find smoke on this. I'm going to put water in it in a bit, see if I get it. But what type of smoke are you thinking? Like a heather type of smoke, a really light?
Very
Extremely light.
Yeah. And it was the
campfire coals that have been put out, and you just get that little hint of smoke coming off of them. It's almost that cold coal smoke smell.
Yeah. It's nice.
Okay.
And that's why I read the label twice to see if it said peated on there anywhere.
I get, and this is weird, a chocolate covered peanut or almond. That's what I'm getting on the nose. That's the first thing that came to mind. Sorry. That's what I get.
The hell? What I missed?
And also the arrowroot cookies. I get arrowroot cookie on it. And if hopefully people out there know what arrowroot cookie is, what do I call it? A digestive cookie?
Digestive.
Baby cookies.
Baby cookies.
Yeah.
And when my children were babies, I'd eat like a whole package of them. They'd have like one to suck on, and I'd pound back like 15.
What do you mean when they were little? That was yesterday.
When my children were little. I was never little, apparently.
And what's the ABV on the Benromach 10? Because there's a lot going on in the mouth too. Like it's
yeah, just 43%.
That's great for 43. And I'm surprised Ralfy picked a 43%er for Whiskey of the Year.
Yeah, it's usually 46 and up for him.
Yeah, but it says something because there is a lot going on for 43.
Hey, Dolph, you got any of that left?
No.
Okay.
Why do you want some?
Well,
you already had some.
I wanted to compare it against the one that I have here on the shelf.
You know what? I still have an extra taster left.
Kent?
So I could throw you out that one for the extra taster. Oh, don't
That
pull.
thing
We're
28
going to
years
pull
old?
that one off, Dave, in the after dram.
Yeah, we're going to do that
well,
after dram.
I'll have to get something later.
Yeah, you want that for later.
You're there. You could go to that right away, buddy.
I'm
And
drinking ahead.
No, don't do that.
Okay.
No.
Stick with us, man.
I'll go
Stay
get
with
something else.
All right. So we've been on for 52 minutes. So I'm going to kind of skip one, and let's go to the end on this, the very last question. And then we'll go the after dram right after that. That's right. Did anyone have anything to say else on this? I'm going to put water in it between now and the after dram, and I want to see what it's like after that.
After 10 weeks, I finally found a quote I like.
10 weeks.
This is two different book clubs. Okay. What, buddy?
Can I read this one?
Yes, please, Dave.
All right. Okay, here we go. We should always be inspired by bad people and assholes. They are living examples of how we should not choose to live. I like it.
That's good.
We should always
What?
For me, it goes
read it again, Dave. I want to hear it again.
Yeah.
We should all be what?
Okay. So it says here, we should always be inspired by bad people and assholes. They are living examples of how we should not choose to live.
I like it, Dave.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Well, and the good thing is I always tell people I don't have to deal with the assholes. I just don't talk to them.
Yes. You just give them beer and they go away.
Yeah.
Give them an
I
extra
don't even
one.
give them that sometimes. I just,
Okay. Yeah. All right. Let's go to the end. Actually, I'm going to do this one right here just to get you guys, because this is the last little bit of it. So I'm going to end with this question. He goes to Bladnoch, so this is south and east, I believe he says, and discovers that he loves the place for its authentic and traditional feel. They're not focused on marketing, which Ralfy says distracts customers from the real deal. I'm going to put his quote on here so everyone can see the quote. Give me 1 second. Here. Help local. Oh, there's it. There we go. So that's the quote right there. He continues. It's on page 78. There's no need for it except to reward non-producing employees at the expense of those who do matter in the business and who do produce. They are old-fashioned, labor-intensive, rustic and traditional, and very satisfying to watch. So that's what Ralfy has to say about Bladnoch. So we've had some discussions on this panel pertaining to marketing small businesses, things. What do you think is Ralphie's? What do you think of Ralphie's view on all things authentic and kind of focusing on that as opposed to the other ones, as opposed to the ones that might be completely mechanized? I'll put it out there.
Hey, Dolph, can we make Dave big? And Dave, can you put that back up?
Yeah.
Make Dave big?
Yep.
Yeah.
Dave is really big. Done. And let's get rid of the quote.
When I heard him, when he said that, all I could think of was this.
Maybe described as the science of arresting human intelligence long enough to get money from. Perfect.
That's
amazing.
good.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Well, I have another one. If you like that one.
Sorry.
Oh.
Stay there.
Nice.
However, if you can be satisfied with the oats that already been through the horse, that comes a little cheaper.
That's good.
That is good, buddy. Stay there.
Dave, I think I need a copy of that sign.
Yeah. I should find my other one.
I think many of us have been on tours down through Scotland and been to different distillery tours and experiences. And I think we can all understand his appreciation. Now I want to go to Bladnoch, but I guaranteed it's probably changed since that experience. But I mean, going to Glenfiddich Distillery, where everything was big, everything felt touristy, everything just felt like we were being herded through the distillery like cattle, was a very different experience than, say, going to like Aberlour, where we had a very authentic tasting room experience with just actually 6 of us in total, 8 of us in total. 2 of the people from Louisiana we became good friends with and ended up visiting in Louisiana years later. Just the difference is, I can totally understand what he's referring to. And then when you get to the distillery level of it, and we all respect a distillery like Springbank, because Springbank is making whiskey the way we sort of romanticize whiskey, maturing the casks right beside the distillery, making everything old fashioned without computers. And I think we can all appreciate what Ralfy appreciates in a good distillery. I totally side with Ralfy on this, and I feel like we all probably have a bond with him when it comes to this kind of stuff.
Okay, I want to pipe up on that one.
Go ahead.
It really was a contrast for me reading that, and then I thought back to our previous book and Davin's comment, how much we have been swayed by marketing, swayed by all these illusions of them doing everything by hand, of it being that hand-turn process, where unfortunately most of them are mechanical, most of them are computerized. That's just not what they're showing us. And I think there's not that authenticity to the processes. We're being wooed with the history and this love of whiskey and not really looking at what they're doing. So I think it's a little naive in the book, and it's a little colored.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I guess Springbank is probably the only one that comes to mind, because they're probably the one that are doing it fully still that way, and maybe they're not as much as they're letting on. I don't know.
And we should always be thinking that someone's trying to manipulate us. I think that's what I taught my children when it came to business and people wanting your money. But I do. I want to romanticize it. I do. I want to keep it in the back of my mind as something with the family doing it and Uncle Joe on the still and someone else in the background. I want these things to happen. It makes me feel good to think that it is, and that's what's in my glass. So willing to suspension of disbelief for me, maybe, but that's the way I'm going to stick with it. I like it that way. Anyone else before we finish it off?
Thanks for having me out. I look forward to the next one. I'll be actually able to join in with a dram the next one.
Back in the land of the living.
The prison cell with my fresh water.
Oh,
well, here,
the water's good.
Close to you, fresh water.
So again, my friends, this has been a fantastic start to our evening, and thanks to our listeners, all our malt mates out there, as Ralfy would say. Thanks to the panel. Thanks to Sean specifically, who came out for the very first time. You did a fantastic job, Sean. Way to go.
Thank you.
Good job.
We'll be back next week, Saturday, May 30th, 7 o'clock Mountain Daylight Time. And that'll be our third discussion about Ralfy's book, Search for a Whiskybothy. That one right there. That's the book.
Here we go.
We'll be discussing chapters 7 to 9 and indulging in a different Ralfy Whiskey of the Year. So please join us in about 5 minutes on this channel for the After Dram, our Talking Dead style debrief. We relax a little bit more. We have a little bit more fun. We're a little bit more open with the discussion, and we oppose each other a little bit more during those
We've all
times.
been holding back.
Yeah. Thank you, Tal.
Sometimes it's a little bit more forceful, and that's the way I like it. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a pleasure, and I'll see you either in 5 minutes or I'll see you next week.
All right, we'll see you guys in a few minutes.
Cheers.
See if I can do this.